I like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. It's Netflix time. We're doing this show called Archive 81. 8 episodes, they range from 45 to 58 minutes apiece, and we're doing episode 1 called Mystery Signals. You already know what time it is. Let's get it. So right off the bat, we get the distorted tape with this lady talking about some "just help me." But we don't really know exactly what she's talking about right now. Next thing you know, we're in New York City. And then we got this guy by the name of Dan who's buying VHS tapes on the street. Yeah, that's Dan right there. He's buying tapes from this vendor. Now let me ask you a question right off the bat. Now if this is taking place in real time, right? What vendor do you know outside of flea markets and pawn shops are actually selling people in 2022 are selling fucking VHS tapes? Now Dan here is nostalgic for old school tapes, but not in the intent that you would think. So we find out that Dan likes to actually work on tapes and improve them. The most damaged tapes, he finds ways to be able to play them. Let's just say he's a fixer-upper. And he also works at this museum. So he's with his assistant and he's watching this rare movie called The Circle that came out in 1958. And it's so rare that it never even made television, but how the fuck did he find out about it? Yeah, look at that old school black and white gangster shit. Now apparently his dad back in the day used to collect these type of tapes. He knows that they were in one of his estates, but he don't know exactly where. So then he gets this message from this lady named Karen, and she wants him to restore a tape, but it tells her to do not copy it. So he goes home and restores this tape, and it's about this lady named Melanie. We find out she's supposed to be doing a documentary about this apartment complex called Vesser. But when he looks up the history about Vesser apartments, it ended up burning down back in 1994. The story was 11 people died in the fire, 98 were injured, and 13 people are missing, just left unaccounted for. Then he goes to a podcast group and meets this guy named Mark. He does a podcast called Mystery Signals. He talks about the supernatural, dimensions being discovered and all that. Later on he talks to him one-on-one, and he's always asking if Dan is okay. So basically he doesn't believe in the supernatural and whatnot. And honestly, I don't think Mark does either. But he enjoys his podcast. Next day he goes to work and he ends up getting this invitation to meet this guy named Virgil. So he goes to Virgil's office. The funny thing is they did a background check on each other and couldn't find nothing. Because Virgil knows about Dan and his museum, and Dan knows what LMG is, but he doesn't understand what they're all about. But Virgil wants him to come work for him and they'll pay him $100,000 to do this project. The project is temporary, but what's it all about? He knows that Dan knows how to fix tapes. He's been collecting research earlier on the Visor apartments. But one thing that wasn't common knowledge, Virgil found out that Dan's parents had died in a fire. The crazy thing is, it was not public information. Now, why is that? Because no bodies were ever recovered from the fire. But yet and still, Dan did everything he could to make sure that was private information. And he surprised Virgil, and LMG found out about it. He doesn't give Virgil a legitimate answer, but he leaves out and tells him, can he think about it? Then we get a flashback to when he was a kid walking his dog. Yeah, just walking his dog. And what was he doing? Walking his dog all day the entire time? But anyway, he comes back to the house and saw it completely burnt down. So he started watching the tape on Melanie again, and he started looking at background pictures and noticed that she had a dog. A dog that looked eerie similar to his dog. So he goes to his friend Mark, thinking to himself that that is his dog. So that similar collection is going to make his decision, and that's going to be Dan's decision to take Virgil up on his offer. So he rides with Virgil to go to this remote location, and he's got food there and everything, a bunch of books, tapes, and he's going to fix and sort through all the tapes to try to figure out what really happened at the Vesser apartments. And they apparently got some state-of-the-art equipment. The only problem is they don't have no internet. They're out here in the boondocks in the mountains. So this is the room they recovered the camera and all the burnt up tapes that Dan basically has to go fix. My only question is, why does Virgil want this information so bad that he's willing to give $10,000 to $100,000 to retrieve? He tells him his button's set up in the house, so all you gotta do is press it for, like, you know, medical attention or anything like that. Virgil says they're like 5 minutes away, and then he goes on and goes about his business. Time to sort through all the burnt tapes, and also the camera that Melanie was recording on. Not sure if there's any lost information on that too, but it's there. Then Dan notices another room, and it has a whole different archive of stuff, but he doesn't go in there. What's in those files? What's going on there? Bottom line, he couldn't get the door open, and we ain't gonna find out this episode. So Dan fixes another tape, and now here we go. So now we see Melanie back in 1994 outside the city of New York. So as we said before, she's starting up the project of the Visser apartment building. So for a regular apartment building, on the side it's got Necronomicon symbols. The fuck is that? We got this guy by the name of John Smith. Apparently, he probably runs the building. He gives her a tour and whatnot, and gets her to her apartment room. So she asks him for any advice about the building. And he says, yeah, never travel to the 6th floor. What the hell's on the 6th floor? Later on, she gets up that night, she starts recording because she's hearing noises coming from the furnace. I guess she heard some type of song playing, but then as she got closer, the feed cut out and then the loud sound just distorted the whole tape. I don't know why the fuck that happened, but anyway. So he fixes up another tape, the continuation. Now she's going around knocking on doors trying to meet the neighbors, but nobody's answering the door. Then she meets this high school girl in the hallway named Jess. So Jess pretty much does everything in this apartment complex. She gives people newspapers, walk their dogs, etc. So Melanie wants Jess to get her to introduce herself to some of the tenants, but she's not really sure if she wants to do it. Then Melanie offers to pay her each week. So she's like, alright, I'm with it. Then they meet this lady named Tamara Stefana. She likes dealing with the opera, playing piano, and a lot of classical horror music. She plays a song that she was working on called The Purgatory. That don't sound good, right? Melanie's disturbed by this shit, but then she says something really crazy. Now, we couldn't hear it through all the distortion, but Melanie says this is the same song she heard last night. Wait a minute, last night when she had her camera on, she was listening through the furnace? She asked Tamara was she playing music last night, but Tamara was like, nah, she was at a performance last night. So if it wasn't her, who else would have been playing some fucking music? Then you think to yourself, did she really even hear it? Next thing you know, Melanie starts feeling sick and almost throwing up in the corner. So after the tape stops, Dan calls Mark and asks him to look up a lady by the name of Tamara. See if he get the information, because obviously he ain't got the internet there, so there you go. But I guess Mark wasn't there and he left a message. But when he was calling, it sounded like static through the phone. It's like, what the heck is going on with the phone? So he goes outside and jogs over to a fence to see if he got reception. And I'm guessing he does for the most part, or somewhat. So he goes back in the house, and this one area section's got a lot of books, a lot of old school film, a fucking Betamax. Who knows if that shit even still works? See, before HVS tapes, there was Betamax. My mom still has one, and yes, it still works. The fuck, how? Anyway, he picks up a composition book with handwritten notes in it. There's a lot of medical or surgical talk. I couldn't really make it out. Tries to get some food and found a freaking rat in there. Ratatouille, heavy ass nigga. He takes out some peanut butter and sets up some mouse traps. Afterwards, he starts having dreams about his childhood again. So we get to another tape and we see what happened with Melanie. Melanie's fine, and she's doing an interview with Jess. Jess talks about how she was born in the apartments, like actually born on the steps. Her mother wasn't able to make it to the hospital, and then on top of that, the elevators was broke, and she ended up giving birth to her on the steps. So in the conversation, Melanie found out there was another apartment complex that caught fire, and this one was built over top of that. That's some wild shit. So she asked her why people choose this building, and she finds out people get pulled here. And she said something about Samuel gets them here. We're like, who the fuck is Samuel? But we don't get an answer, and all of a sudden Jess starts staring into outer space like she is zoned the fuck out. Next thing we know, she is lifted off the fucking ground. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Now at this point, they're chalking it up to her apparently having a seizure. When Dan's keep looking back and forth at the tape, I keep feeling like I'm seeing something else there. Maybe it's just Melanie's knee. He tries to slow the tape down to see if he can hear any other voices in the background. Then all of a sudden it gets distorted. But then the distortion all of a sudden looks like an alien head, like it's coming out the TV. I'm like, what the fuck? Holy shit, what the fuck is that? He goes outside to get a signal so he can call Mark again, and he's spazzing the fuck out. And he feels like LMG was listening to his conversations on the landline. But he doesn't really tell him nothing else. He just chalks it up to him being okay and everything's fine. Then we get some background story that happened with what happened that fateful day. Dan and his sister were playing the piano. They were playing some song that his father did not want to hear. His father told him to stop playing that song immediately. Don't even mind him for Black Thought from the Roots. That's when his father told Dan to go walk the dog. And of course, you know what happened from there. Well, if you don't remember, the house got burned down. So we get to the next tape. It turns out Jess is fine. Her and Melanie chalked it up to a seizure. But we know what we saw. We saw her getting lifted off the fucking ground. So Melanie wants to meet Jess's mom or whatever like that, but Jess quickly changed the subject. They bring up the name Samuel again, but they never get give us any more information on him. So now we're all wondering who the fuck is Samuel. But then right before Jess is about to tell us something, the tape gets distorted again. The next thing we see, Melanie's talking about they kidnapped Jess. So I'm like, who the hell kidnapped Jess? So then in the tape we see John Smith, and he's like, yeah, I told you the 6th floor was off limits. And Melanie's like, what the fuck you do with Jess? He's like, man, I don't know what you're talking about. He's maneuvering her down the steps. Who's this guy trying to stop her? Then the guy tells her Jess is gone. It's like, where did she go? Then these two guys come out of nowhere, and they tell her she's got to come with us. Come with y'all where? And then she's going into the camera saying, please find me. So this is the footage we saw at the beginning of the episode. And as Dan's looking further into the footage, who the fuck is that patrolling it? That's Dan's dad. What the fuck? What in all the fuck? First off, why the hell is he there? How did he escape the fire? Who, what, where, when, why, how? But then Melody asks, what the fuck are you doing here? Like she knows him. Last thing we see in the episode is him going through the footage and all the cameras set up around the house that Dan's staying in. And of course, Mr. Virgil watching the whole thing. So yeah, I got so many questions. But I guess I'm about to see all 8 episodes to find this shit out. Archive 81 on Netflix. Check it out. Like, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. 6 easy, y'all easy, best. Big, you got that slogan.